What if I told you that everything that you are listening to and seeing right now was in part designed using AI? That's the topic of today's show. I'm Sebastian Perez from the Digital Acid, and we've got another trippy episode for you today. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about AI and how it could help design streetwear, rap songs, or even art. Now, what's dope is that basically the guy who helped produce this track and this line are both by the same dude, Rabi Bara, 19, 20 years old, using artificial intelligence, deep learning, neural networks, and to put it all in a box under the term GAN. And that is the word of the day. What does it mean? You know what? Let's get to that in a minute. But first off, let's appreciate this hella dope line that he designed. And this ain't the only thing that he's done. He basically designed an algorithm as well that helps him produce different types of designs. And one of the algorithms that he had put out on GitHub, well, guess what? Someone used this algorithm to produce a piece of artwork that sold for over $400,000 on Christie's. But this isn't the only thing, right? Now politicians, they're starting, even social media platforms, they're starting to ban deep fakes. So it's really becoming a topic of discussion, and I really want everyone out there, even if you've never heard of AI or don't understand it, don't understand what a GAN is or neural networks, don't let that throw you off the track. You've got to learn about this. And that is what today I'm going to be talking about. So if you like what we're going to be discussing and you want to share this with someone else, please make sure to do that. You can also subscribe to our channel where we're always going to be talking about these types of topics, always presented about the future now. So we're the best of streetwear and futurism. My name's Sebastian Perez, and let's get into it.
Next generation will be assaulting him.
I know not why.
And this AI may not know why it is doing what it's doing, but it's based off of being fed Kanye West lyrics. And really, all of these networks have to learn from somewhere. So today I'm going to be giving you an easy way to understand the basics of a GAN. And even if you don't know anything, even if you're not even into computers, I'm going to give you a really simple example using everybody's favorite out there in the streetwear world. We're going to be using some sneakers. This, I think, is the best way to explain it to anybody who still doesn't yet understand it. So apologies out there to the experts for oversimplification, but we must educate ourselves on this topic if we want litigation, if we want to become entrepreneurs, if we want to be the next generation of technologists, and if we want that to start right here in the culture, then let's learn in a really simple way. So first off, sneakers, right? They're beloved, they have this sort of rarity to it, and so it kind of creates a black market, right? So you have now third parties like StockX, which is basically, in this case, someone who is an expert who has been fed and seen so many authentic shoes that they're ability to spot the fakes based off of these micro details is better than anyone else, right? And so the techniques, kind of ways to authenticate the shoes, and also the bootleggers got better. So it's kind of this, let's say, adversarial game against the bootleggers and the authenticators to be able to spot the fakes. And once they figure out that their fakes were spotted, then the fakes get better. And that's how we end up at a result like this. So because in the beginning the bootlegs are not really that good because they haven't yet been trained on how to make passable fakes, you really got to start at the ground level, like nothing, right? So, and just like these networks, you know, they are pretty new. This is sort of like the 8-bit era of what's happening right now, and it's advancing rapidly. And this concept was introduced by a former Google employee, Ian Goodfellow, in 2014, and kind of talked more out through 2016. And these technologies have quickly gotten to a point where I would say there's some videos out there that are really hard to tell what's real and what's fake. And so they get good by being trained. And they do thousands and thousands and thousands of designs. So imagine like a bootlegger being able to produce thousands and thousands and thousands of designs in seconds to see what fools the sort of authenticator. So StockX is what we'll call in this situation the discriminator, because they discriminate the details of the fake. And then we'll also call the bootleggers in this case the generators, because they're generating the fakes. So imagine they're competing against each other in an adversarial type of way, or they're adversaries, or they're sort of competing against each other in a game of cat and mouse and try to get better and better, sort of like the bootlegging of money, police, and the fake money. You know, they get better at making fake money, but then they get better at spotting them. And that's how you end up with this really incredible result. So now, these networks don't really know much about the context of things, so it has to look at a lot of originals, and that's fed by a person. So a person says, hey, this is a bunch of real data. So let's just say these are real Raf Simons collaborations. You have no fakes in here, so you have nothing to worry about. Study these. And here's thousands and thousands of examples. Now, you may start with less examples, but the whole point is the more data it has, the better it gets, etc. Now, in the beginning, the bootleggers, they're just going to throw out some trash and get snagged immediately. You know what I mean? And that's because they really haven't yet got good at producing the fakes. So you have the real one here, and it may be looking at things like color, it may be looking at design details, it may be looking at size. So there's a whole bunch of things, brands that it may be looking at that makes this thing an authentic thing. So also remember, keep in mind, this shoe in this analogy is videos, audio, text, etc. Now, the generator, the bootlegger, produces something like this. And right off the top, you, I, and the discriminator, or StockX, they go, hey, this is a fake. And you go, why? Well, first of all, this is a Nike. Second of all, it's got the wrong colors. It's a white shoe. It's not even close to this dark shoe. So automatically rejected. This is not an authentic Raf Simons collaboration with Adidas. Okay. Now, the generator gets a little bit smarter and says, well, what if it was an Adidas, right? And it was darker. Does it fool you? Okay. And still, in this case, the discriminator is looking at a real shoe and going, this is not the same shit. So, try again. And this is happening thousands and thousands of times per second. But imagine, okay, now it's getting a little bit more clued up during this training, and it's like, all right, darker, maybe pops of color, Adidas, does this work? No, this is still not it. So even though these tricks may be getting better on the side of the bootleggers or the generators, it still is not generating something that is passable as authentic. And on top of that, the discriminators are getting better at spotting fakes, because it's like, oh, if you try to throw me something that's dark or that is also Adidas branded, I know more details beyond that because I've seen your tricks before and I got better at it. Boom. Okay. Now, again, you at home who may be an expert on streetwear and sneakers would go, there's no way that this Yeezy is in Adidas Raf Simons, right? But now you have the darker color, you have the Adidas, so it's sort of these details that it has to fine tune into until it reaches this point right here, where the discriminator basically cannot tell the difference between the two. And you'll see this cycle happening over and over and over where the fakes are starting to spill over into the real and nobody can tell the difference, right? And that's the goal with these GANs. And what it means is, a GAN means generative adversarial network. So basically the generator is the adversary to the networks, in this case, which is the discriminator, and they play a game against each other to get better and better, and they're obviously trying to do different things. Discriminator is trying to label things as real or fake, and it's a different function, and the generator is there to just generate designs that eventually become passable. And so the reason why this is really important is, A, in politics you see it getting, coming up. And here, I want you to hear some audio as well.
Through the use of artificial intelligence, Coding Elite on YouTube has created a fake version of myself that can say or do anything. As these models improve, the potential for misuse is a scary thing indeed. In this new future, we must be vigilant and treat outrageous news with suspicion. I also advise subscribing to this channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
So basically it's an analyzing all of this information and able to interpret the nuance inside of these images until it gets better and better, and then you've now trained the network to do a seamless fake. And so we've seen some laws go up when it comes to sort of these networks producing basically fake porn about celebrities or revenge. So this has been outright banned. Also, you see social networks who are now basically banning deep fakes because it could propagate basically fake news. And, the saying used to be, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, and now you can't believe any of it, to be honest. So it's a really interesting problem. Now they're starting to create algorithms which could spot deep fakes, because we feel that humans aren't going to be that good at that. But really, I don't want people to be outright afraid of this technology. Why? Because it has a lot of amazing potential benefits. One that could save your life. Not only can it help design better architecture, better, city structures, there's really no limit as to what this thing can do. It can even help design life-saving drugs. And the reason for this is because it can simulate thousands and thousands of experiments inside of the computer and then propose the closest which solves the target problem. And so if we go and we say artificial intelligence, AI, it's the boogeyman, it's bad, the problem is if we litigate against it, then we have an issue where we're not going to get those amazing designs which may help with, efficiency in using our technologies to save energy. There's really endless possibilities, anything that it can be simulated, designed, and improved on with different iterations and sketches, if you will. It's like prototyping thousands and thousands of possibilities automatically based off of something that you want, that are desirable. It really can change everything. And so what if it could cure cancer? What if it could help us solve some of the world's biggest problems? And that is where we stand right now. So there's this line in the sand. This is brand new. And the other thing is that this is happening in a few lines of code. This really is something that you can learn if you put your mind to it, and you can use it to create all types of things. People have generated classical music I think there's like a 24-hour death metal channel, which only plays death metal generated by AIs, designs for clothing. Really, you are the decider of what these tools can help you design. And I think Robbie put it well. I was trying to get a example of how this translates exactly from a rough design into an actual line. And so I tweeted him and he responded. So thanks for that, Robbie. And I'm going to show you right here. I was trying to ask him about side-by-sides. These are some of the crude designs that can come out of it. And I mean crude, I mean like it's not full resolution designs, but then from there, designers can make improvements upon it. And so he did make one very important fact stand out to me. Even though this is something that I'm familiar with, I think that this is something that needs to be said. You know, there's still a huge hand that is played by humans here. And so it's really about them deciding what is usable, what's not, what's improvable. But the point that it's a tool that can offer you suggestions based off of any data that you decide, media most importantly, that is what the opportunity is. And so he says, I'll probably post something side by side like this very soon, but please, the GAN doesn't do any designing. It's me making images with the GAN as a tool. Now, I want you to quickly listen to this.
Even if they would never say those things.
This audio and video was generated by a GAN and is not real.
I don't know. Killmonger was right. Ben Carson is in the sunken place. Or, how about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things. At least not in a public address. But someone else would.
Now this...
like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward,
this would fool you. If you're looking at this on Facebook, if you're looking at this on Instagram, this would fool most people. Nobody's going to go and check.
News sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information.
This was done by BuzzFeed.
It's going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fucked up dystopia. Thank you. Stay woke, bitches.
Stay woke. And that's what we're here about at the Digital Acid, is staying woke about what's going on. I mean, look, listen to this clip about Joe Rogan. This is crazy.
An artificial intelligence created by Dessa. You guys know David Barstow. He's a New York Times reporter who won the most Pulitzer Prizes for journalism in history. He recently followed a crazy deep learning company called Dessa.
I can't tell the difference.
They created the world's first combination of realistic AI, voice and video. Here's what they created. I've been thinking.
That's also fake.
It's been almost 10 years since the first episode of the podcast. That's fucking crazy. This show has become my life. That's why I decided to go with that. So, on December 24th...
And that's the original guy. So, this is the issue that we're facing in 2020 and really the whole decade ahead. It's only going to get better, exponentially better. And now in 2020, January of 2020, already you have Clothing, who is right now, in part, being generated, or at least suggestions, to be completely accurate to Robbie's point. It's being used as a tool to design things in our everyday life. So the question is, how will you be a part of this revolution? The world needs designers, the world needs entrepreneurs and innovators, and my hope is that you'll be inspired by our show to go out there and just try it. Sometimes it's a few lines of code. Sometimes it's a YouTube tutorial. Sometimes it's a bunch of YouTube tutorials. Sometimes a message board. But you are the future of what will happen with these technologies. Will all the opportunities be hoarded by the megacorps, or will people within the culture have an option to win too? And that's what today's show is about. GANs, Generative Adversarial Networks, a type of neural network, which is a type of AI. And boom, there you go. Now run and tell that. Subscribe. TheDigitalAcid.com. TheDigitalAcid.com. For more, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're there, baby. And that's it. I'm out.